Chan's got some things he wants to present with some of the other taxing districts. That'd be good. We do want to start off the meeting. I think it's a good idea. Most of this is a little more casual, but I'd like to go around the whole room and everybody kind of just say who they are and maybe a short thing on why you're here. I mean, it'll be very interesting to find that answer out. And I'll start over here with this young man.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to get on back to Lexington, but my name is Brian Short. I'm the District 6 Chairman of the Libertarian Party of Kentucky, and I've been following your efforts here for a while, and come to some of the library meetings as well. And I have to say, I applaud your group, and I think that some of these things need to be looked at much more carefully. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Keep at it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And on that note, I guess I should have started off my way. I think most everybody knows me. I'm Rick Gunderson, and again, I am not your leader, and I am just here as a regular Joe Blow guy that just kind of cares about how our government's been run, and that's why I'm here, just to help support, to make sure everything in our government is transparent, in all levels. And if this has to start at a local level, then so be it. But anyway, I'm going to move on. Sandy's over there. Hi, Sandy. It's good to see you.
I'm Sandy Romanesco, and I'm a government employee. Thank you very much. I work for the Industrial Authority and the Chamber of Commerce, which is a private entity, membership entity. I have no hidden agendas. I'm an advocate for many things. I just came from a meeting about breast cancer reconstruction, which I've been through, and I raise a grandchild, and I'm an advocate of drug abuse and all kinds of things. I came to hear what you all have to say or what your own group is really about. I've said many times I would open my personal checkbook to you. I'm that transparent. If anybody knows me, they know I'm that transparent. I care about my community. I have no hidden agendas. I want fair things for all, but I also want people to treat people with respect that they deserve to be treated.
You should run for mayor. Hey, Dewan.
I'm Dewan Wells. I'm a resident of Old Silo here in Silver Creek, a citizen of Montgomery County. I've been listening to the message that's been presented the last few months, I guess you could say. I'm just here to see how that message continues through the other taxing districts.
Thank you. Carol?
Carol Guessford.
Say something.
Just anything.
Well, I thought we could trust the officials here in Montgomery County, but I guess we can't. And I want to see it be fair for everyone. I mean, I don't think it's right what's happening.
I'm Captain Spencer. I work with the Mount Sterling Advocate, and no offense, but I'm here because I have to be.
That was a good thing to say.
I was going to do that too, but I was going to.
Well, we're glad you're
News.
here.
Try
Hey, Ken.
to be fair anyway.
Oh,
Ken.
Ken Miller, and I'm just an interested citizen.
I'm Kelly Smith. I'm Director of Development for the Bluegrass Institute for Public Policy Solutions. I was asked to come by our President and CEO, Mr. Jim Waters, who I believe has come before, but we are Kentucky's only free market public policy think tank for individual liberty, limited and constitutional government, free markets, and a transparent government.
I'm Kimberly Blevins. I'm just a local property owner that, I've been reading in the paper about the group and what you're doing, and a lot of the things I had no idea how of course I've always known the library as being there, and didn't even realize how it came about and that they were able to tax the way they were without even being elected officials, and I was interested in all that, didn't want to get my insurance bill in. It's went up 25% in addition to all the other taxes and stuff that I just imagine what that's going to be when we do get that in. And that's what actually got me here, and because I don't believe that there should be any. I'm all for taxation. I'm not one of these no tax government at all, but there should not be any taxation without representation, and that's exactly what the special tax districts are when they're not, appointed by. They're not elected officials themselves, so. And our elected officials apparently doesn't want to step up and take responsibility for who they appoint to the boards.
Pleasure.
I'm Doug Gashford, and my wife and I own Gateway Manufacturing. We started in 1994. We moved here from Lexington, Kentucky in 1995 and been here ever since. And we like small towns, and we like small towns because we come from a small town. And I'm here because I have some concerns. I have some concerns about the way Kentucky does their special taxing districts. And the more I look into it, the more what concerns me is, like was said before, taxation without representation isn't a good thing. And unfortunately, the long-term fix for this is to try to get legislation to move to make it more responsible and accountable. I don't think that anybody that's in a special taxing district or as a member of a board of a special taxing district is doing anything that's not expected of them, but whether or not it's looked at from a well-rounded perspective, you know, a give and take situation, because so many people that get into an environment like that, as a board member, as members of different boards that I've been on in the past, sometimes you can think about how you can improve life and not balance it against, well, how does that affect things? And that's what I'm afraid is happening. And even though there's pennies on the dollars all over the place, those pennies add up to a lot of money. So I'm here to try to understand what we're doing today, try to find reasonable people on both sides of the situation, invite people from both sides of the situation to the meeting, because I think the clearer we are about what we're trying to get done and the more diverse we are about who we have around, the better we'll be understood and heard. So that's what I'm hoping for.
And that was your 3 minutes, bud.
Yes.
Shannon.
Hello, I'm Shannon Denniston, and I'm a concerned homeowner, someone that's lived here since 1979, 33 years, and that's when I was born, so that's why I've been here that long. But take great joy in the community, proud to call Mount Sterling my home. And I've started many businesses here. I think there's a lot of great hard-working people here, reasonable people, and people that want to do what's right. And that's my big thing, is doing what's right for the people. Right now, the economy is really tough, and you know, we're seeing these taxes go up, and it's not just our property taxes, but our sales taxes, payroll taxes. There's a lot of different types of taxes. I think something like 50-some taxes now that we pay. Approximately 50 cents of every dollar goes out the window in the form of taxes. And like you said, I'm with you. I mean, I think that we need to have some level of taxation. That goes with the territory of being the United States of America, but I do not believe that 50% is a fair number. And when it comes to property taxes, I'm not a big fan of property taxation at all, because I feel that we should at least have that right to own, you know, our primary residence, maybe a business, or, you know, at least be able to own property that we've worked our whole life for and paid with after-tax dollars. You know, it'd be nice to at least be able to own our primary residence, at least be able to own something. But because there's taxes on the property we own, we don't truly own that property. The government owns that property. So as long as we're paying taxes on our property, it's truly owned by the government. We're essentially, I guess, a leasehold, as you would maybe be a better term for it. So, you know, I think that we need to have some taxes, but as far as property taxes go, the least amount possible. So, like I said, I'm Shannon Denniston, just here as a lifelong resident of the community. I started and ran numerous businesses here over the past 33 years, and just very concerned with this topic. I started my independent research about 2 years ago with it, and when I started looking into it, what I was told was stuff that I found very difficult to believe. So I'm glad to see that we're having a discussion. Thanks to the government for being, you know, some people from government being here. You know, I commend everybody for coming out today. I know you could be doing a million other things, spending time with family, friends, or just outside, you know, getting your yard ready for spring. There's a lot of things we could be doing on this beautiful day. But I just want to commend each and every person for coming out tonight. It means a whole lot, not just me, but to the group. There are no leaders here. We're all equal. we're all in this together. So thanks very much for coming out.
Chris.
I'm Chris Smith, and I've lived here for about 8 years. Before that, I lived in Clark County since 1993, and I've owned and run a home improvement replacement window business since about 1989, and just recently, due to our new economy, I've had to take a job, and in doing such, and having to cut back, it's given me a new vision for how business works and how it is that our government can continue to raise the rates and continue to tax us more and more when we're taking less and less. And I understand when you balance scales, at some point they tip and they don't ever come back. And I don't think that it's right what they're doing, and then there is no controls or no overseeing in the procedures of the way the special taxing districts are done. So I won't take my whole 3 minutes.
You only get one time.
Hi, my name is Carol Gunderson. I'm the other half to that one standing up there. We've
Don't
lived
blame
here.
her.
The better half.
We feel sorry for her.
We've lived here about 6 years now. We own and operate Kentucky Wi-Fi. I am here because I'm concerned about runaway taxes. And I believe that all government entities should be accountable to the people who supply that money. And that's what I'm most concerned about, is accountability.
I'm Jenny Mandrell, and Daryl Mandrell is my husband, and he brought me to U.S. and I came to U.S. 2007, and I'm a citizen in 2010.
Yay.
So,
Where are you from?
China.
China.
So Mount Sterling is my home in U.S. and I come here, I try to learn about the community and try to learn about the things in U.S. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Daryl Mandrell. I've been a resident of Mount Sterling since 1990. Own a small business in Mount Sterling. I came here to Mount Sterling doing something different than I'm currently doing now, and stayed here because I like Mount Sterling a lot. And it's a great community. Montgomery County is a great place. Made a lot of great friends here, and it truly is a great place to live. My life has gotten immensely better since I did meet this Jenny, and she came to the U.S. and she has been a fantastic friend and partner in my life, and from someone who has firsthand experience from seeing things from a much different perspective on government, on community, on communism, on things like that. She has helped me see a lot of things from a different perspective that I think is very good. But I'm here as a citizen, as a business owner, as a community member who is also very concerned about government, the way government is run, about taxes, about everybody making the best community that we can, but being responsible personally and as a community. And that's what I would like to see. There be open dialogue and participation from everyone that makes up the community, not just taxpayers, but also those that either part of these special taxing districts or elected officials on whatever level. We are all one, and we need to work together on these things to make our community even better. That's why I'm here, and I want to encourage people on any side of whatever issue. Let's just be the adults that we are, work together, work on trusting each other, having confidence in each other that we have our best interest involved, and try to work together for a common solution.
I'm Ken Siders. My wife and I moved here in 2008, bought a house about a mile north in North Ridge Estates, or something, it's called something like that. And our first tax itemized bill was in 2009, and so I wrote down all the things. OC like that. And the library at that time cost us on our house assessment $95. And in 2012, it was $135.90. So it went from 95 to 135. So that's a little more than, that's a $40 increase, a little more than 40% increase. And so that got my attention. I thought, I wonder why, I wonder what's up. So when, see, I forget how I first heard, I guess Daryl mentioned about, he's my neighbor down the road from me, Shannon. When I heard about this group, I thought, well, okay, let's go see. So I'm still in the education process on the details of it, and maybe forever will be. I do believe in citizen participation, and I think our being us and them by different levels of government is not so great. And the more we have an overlap and interchange, the better. So I also like the fact that there's some discussion going on still about this. I'm here to learn.
I'm Melissa Smathers Barnes. I'm the director at the Montgomery County Public Library. I've been there since 2001. And libraries exist in a community altogether and have for hundreds of years for freedom of speech. So that's, you know, what we're all here for tonight. Well, I've been in the library for last night for the board meeting. And that's what we want to make sure continues to exist at the library in this community, and for now and for generations to come, hopefully. And the library, you know, on behalf of me and the library board, you know, we're glad to see everybody come to those meetings. We're glad to see everybody, you know, their input. And that's something that the board has tried to get for years as they've looked toward, it's been in our 5-year plan to try to do some type of expansion, to look for some place. We've done surveys, you know, we've put things in the paper, we've been on the radio, we've done all kinds of things, you know, saying, here's what we're doing, here's our plan, here's what we're looking for. Nobody ever shows up other than Shannon has been there once and talked to us. The year after Shannon was there and talked about our tax rates, the board actually cut our real property, our personal property tax rate. And they, you know, went below the compensating rate and went to a lesser rate, and mostly because Shannon was there. And, you know, they took that into consideration. But, you know, and I think now that there is a dialogue and there's a conversation, that is part into play. And until now, there hasn't been anybody, the board has sought that input, they've looked for that input, and it hasn't been there. They've, you know, they've tried to make decisions, they've looked for things, they've tried to get answers, and we know what's needed, we know what state standards are there, and we can look to those things, but there's only so much you can look to, and they have to make decisions based on what's available. And if there's no input from anybody, you don't have that input from the public other than what we can get. So that's what input we've had. So the more information that we can get from people, the more conversation that we can have. You know, we're interested, you know, as though you've talked about dialogue, that's what we need to be able to do that. And that's you know, exactly what the library's for, is, you know, freedom of speech and conversation and those kinds of things, and that's why we want to continue for it to exist. So.
Well, I'd say you found a way to get our attention.
I'm Helen Willoughby, and I'm just a citizen of Montgomery County.
I'm Deborah Ware, and I do work for the public library, and I'm a taxpayer as well. And I'm very offended by a lot of the accusations that have been thrown around about the library, because we are very transparent, and we are not wasting money. And that's about all I've got to say about that.
Well, that's fine. There's no offense intended by anybody.
I don't think there is, but the way things have been phrased,
that's what happens when people get into an argument back.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, you guys are welcome to move down a little bit. There's plenty of room if you feel too crowded. I want everybody to feel that's fine too. Like I said, I'm not the leader, and so Shannon's got some things that he wants to present. I just wanted to welcome everybody. And you'll find it's not just about the library, and we are not against the library in any means. But Shannon wants to present some things, and then I encourage everybody, after Shannon's done, he'll probably open it up to dialogue. And I do encourage that we elaborate more on everything that everybody obviously has things to talk about and wants to get their 2 cents in, because that's what's important in grassroots is that everybody gets their 2 cents in, and there's brain trust out there that's not being tapped, and it needs to be tapped. And the way things are going in our economy, I see that we're gonna lean on that brain trust to come out and talk about it, but that's my 2 cents.
Can
Shannon?
I say something?
Yes.
I won't be able to stay because I have a 3-year-old grandchild at home waiting on me because I raise a grandchild too. But I just wanna say, I came here, I was born and raised here, moved away from school, came back 13 years ago to take the position I have. And nobody, I guarantee you, nobody in this room loves this community more than me. I promise you that, because it's my hometown. I couldn't wait to come back and take the position I have. I'm the biggest cheerleader for this community there is. And 25 years ago, if you remember, some of you are too young to remember, but when Hobart left and A.L. Smith left, we, they called us Mount Starvation. It was dire straits in this community. And this community pulled together after that. It took a little bit of headbutting and a little communication, brought the community together to pull the wagon in the same direction. We now have a very diverse manufacturing base for a community our size. We have more manufacturing jobs per capita than most communities our size, than almost all communities our size. And we've got to pull the wagon together, you all. We're losing our cooperation. You see in the paper where the mayor and the judge aren't getting along about things in the park. This group is being kind of adversarial, from what I'm reading and what a little bit I've watched on YouTube, a little bit adversarial and giving out some statistics that may not be accurate. And I'm not here to debate all that. I just want us all to work together for the good of this community. Doug, you're my friend. You're my rent-a-friend, whatever you want to call me. You're my friend. And you always will be my friend. Doug has a heart as big as that belly he's got there. But Doug, you wouldn't be in business right now. Doug, you wouldn't be in business right now, and you've told me this if it hadn't been for tax credit program.
That's right. Creative was what created gateway manufacturing.
And so, taxes are, I don't want to pay them either, but I pay them just like everybody else. And I think I said in the beginning, I'll open my personal checkbook up to anyone and show you. I give as much back to this community as anybody that makes what I make, and to my church, because I believe in this community, and Doug does too. I know he does. And I don't want to pay them any more than anybody, but it's a necessary thing if you want to have a great school, and you want to have a great library, and you want to have a great economic development program. You go to a community that doesn't have an economic development program like we have, and you see a community that doesn't have any jobs. So taxes are a necessary evil, but they're very necessary. I did go down and talk to Linda Koppel, and I did get the lowdown from what a little bit I can understand of it, and I'm going home to my CPA husband so he can explain it to me some more. But, there may be, I don't know, there may be a loophole or a whatever in the way the law was written. I don't know what the intent that was written 33 years ago or ever how long ago that law was written. But I know the intent, my heart is right now, and I know the intent of some of you in this room have got to be for the betterment of the community. So let's do pull together. Let's see if we can get our mayor and judge communicating again. Let's try to get everybody on and not be accusatory and disrespectful of others. That's all I want. I want good things for this community all the way around, but I don't want to see anybody accused of anything they're not doing or of wrongdoing when they're not doing something wrong. Especially, and people volunteer in this community, and Melissa, I know how you feel. We send out email after email after email asking for input on whatever, and we get very, very little feedback. So she's right about that, and I applaud you for trying to get information. It's like pulling teeth. So, that's all I have to say.
And along those same lines, and like Melissa said, it's tough. I mean, you talk to our representatives, you talk to our state senators, they all clamor to get information back from the public. And the public doesn't take time to do it because typically the public all feels pretty tied up and busy and thinking everybody's doing right. But we have to be very careful not to let emotions run away from us. And I can tell you personally, what bothers me, or what tends to bother me, is if there's a set of rules that I'm given the first time I participate, and then the second time I participate, all the rules change, cut down, reduce. it gives me the appearance that even though I believe at heart you guys wanna hear us, you're also either caught up in the emotion or caught up in the scare or caught up in the whatever. And the reason why we came to the library board, at least this is what I feel, is because the library board was the most cooperative board of all the different special taxing districts. So we thought that, quote, we could practice our inappropriateness or our emotion fly or whatever it is on you guys and get better and more polished at it, because we are just a group of citizens that are here talking. But last night took me back. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna ignore it and assume that, you know,
Well, they're defense mechanisms.
somebody has to ignore the step forward in order for us to retreat back to a cooperation thing. And that's all we really want. I think probably this group formed up as a result of Shannon feeling like he was not being talked to, he was being avoided, he's being side-curtain. Even today, you know, if we need to get a budget, we pay 10 cents a sheet in order to get it. And you know, folks, you know, if somebody wants me to donate a pad of paper or a box of copier sheets or a thing of toner, I'll go do that. What I don't like is if every turn we ask questions, and I can see why people might get frightened, but at every turn, if we ask questions and there's a pushback or a wall, it's gonna become adversarial. We don't want that. All we want, and maybe our first pitch to you all may have sounded way too drastic on one side.
Too aggressive.
Yeah, but what we expected to do was to hear some sort of a counter, some understanding, but instead what we got was a lawyer. And we kind of saying, well, you know, we don't want this to progress that way. And I even talked to your lawyer afterwards, said, look, this is not our intent. This is not our intent. What we want is a communication, you know, and you can't have a communication if we're allowed to ask one question for 3 minutes, and then you can't ask again, and then there's no time to ask any question after something else is. Now, you did loosen up because we were actually conversing back and forth. But when we read that rule, and then at the very top, just to make us all feel at home, you have no right to speak in an open public thing. But I know that, and there's all sorts of laws that we can name off.
You go to the school board meeting, you don't get to talk at all.
Well, obviously that's not why we're at the school board meeting.
Yeah.
We didn't go to the school board first.
We'll talk when we're there.
So I, in hopes of us all progressing, I would like to see a dialogue. I would like to see an understanding. And what you have to do, unfortunately, is you have to trust each other. And you have to open up the thoughts and processes. And you're absolutely right. The first person that we can blame for getting to where we are today was special taxing districts. I was so busy with work that I just entrusted that everything was going all right. And when, you know, like when you opened your first bill and it was $95 or whatever, now it's $145. And the law says 4%. Wow, how does that happen? So we're now awake, and we promise you, what we do promise you is participation from here on out. Because it's unfair to have appointed, non-paid board members sitting there and looking at a blank wall. It's unfair. It really is. So you won't have that. You won't have that. You'll have participation. But what we hope we can have is we can have open dialogue and not necessarily agree with everything and still be able to communicate, because I think it'll make everybody better. And believe you me, I now know you, okay? That means that most likely, and she'll attest to that, her emails to me, and they are many, don't go unanswered, okay? So I think it
Just
will
the phone
actually.
calls.
I just have to pay her every, no, I'm just kidding. Pay her every month so she gets along with me. No, but our whole goal is to be able to talk and communicate. What we're getting is a lot of pushback, and of course with anything, people get frightened. And we're not trying to be frightening, we're actually trying to get involved. And we have some very deep, rooted questions.
Well, and I think the whole thing, of course, we're all covered by the same insurance carrier.
Yeah.
So that one word at the bottom that says, or potential litigation,
And
kicks that mechanism in for our insurance carrier.
Yes.
That
Take
says,
a-
you've
take a-
got to have a lawyer.
Right.
I've got that letter that came from them that says, you've got to have a lawyer now.
Right. And what's just,
So,
and
yeah,
the
what's
first
that
thing we
on
told
there?
you, and the first thing we told.
What you say that's
Hold
his
on.
man, that
First,
wasn't,
and
no.
the first thing you need to know is that document that was created was not created by a lawyer. And once we realized that, we said that was not our intent. And so we tried to get him to back out and go. Because we said, look, what do we have to do? Do we have to write something, say, forget what I said? What do we have to do? Because that's not our intent. Because what will happen is emotions will come, well, you do that, then I'll do that, and then pretty soon, like the lawyer admitted, the only people that come out are the lawyers. And that's not what the intent is, because first off, it's a long drawn out. I was sued by the city. I'm still here. I was sued by the city. And what the government finally said after $120,000 worth of litigation was, I was absolutely right and the city was absolutely wrong. Well, whoopee, what did that do? Well, it cost me $120,000 to enable me to work at Gateway Manufacturing. Okay? That's what it was. Yeah. But
Made amends on
but
it.
there's still a person involved in the government. But okay, fine, okay. But what I found out very quickly is when a public organization decides to have it out for an individual, individuals beware, because it can get very expensive. So I guess, and she'll attest to this, I am not typically the neutralizing, let's all get along, let's try to cooperate. I am so black and white, it's not even funny.
Well,
I am the guy that's on the
walk
right.
into a room and intimidate somebody,
Well,
let's just be
yeah.
honest.
Well, there's big belly. But so I want this to work. I don't want it to litigate. And oh, by the way, I didn't mention it, but I am very grateful that there are organizations out there that can help citizens that decide to wake up.
Well, I would just like to, since I wasn't at this meeting, but I would like to sort of let everyone know, the Bluegrass Institute, if you're not familiar with our organization, we sort of are known as a center-right, libertarian, conservative organization. But in the instance of transparency is one of our core pillars. We have a long record of dealing with government transparency. And actually, Kentucky's auditor, which if you know is a Democrat, Mr. Adam Elan, he came to our organization and said, I know the Institute is very active with transparency. Do you guys know how many taxing districts there are in the state of Kentucky? And we said, gosh, we don't know. He said, I'm trying to find out because nobody can tell me how many of these taxing districts there are. We can't get a hold of any sort of audited budgets or any defining information. And would you guys work with us on this? And we said, of course we will. We are for government transparency. And it's not going to be perfect, obviously. I mean, it's government. You have to get there. But working together, he provided the website to put all the information online. Found out that there's 1,268 taxing districts in the state of Kentucky, responsible for $2.7 billion per year of a fourth of the general fund. So there's some, like you were
And
saying.
the scary thing about that is special taxing districts have no elected official oversight.
School districts do.
In fact, they kind of like that. This is my own conjecture, but they kind of like that because then they can't be blamed for any tax.
Well, they do appoint the board members, so they do have.
But they have no control, according to the legislation, and so forth. There is no.
And it's not a true appointment. I mean, they're provided with two choices for one spot. And it's, when I'm being told as well, we don't like either one of the options, but we can't send them back, so we have to choose the lesser of the two.
They can appoint anyone they want. They don't have to, they can appoint anybody they want to any position they want. They don't have any.
But what they say is
They're telling us that they can't.
And the law states that when a taxing district turns in the budget, the only thing they do is recognize the fact that the budget was turned in. They say they don't oversight it at all. And the legislation reads that way. And in fact, I think House Bill 1, and boy, it's weird when I'm talking like this. House Bill 1 had an amendment put in it that put an oversight on the part of the fiscal court and the county judge, and they all said it wouldn't pass if you do that. So there's a lot of political officials that don't want to touch this hot potato.
Right, and although the Institute has nothing to say about a specific bill, just the fact that we're having this conversation, these two organizations, these two groups, government and organization with regard to government transparency is at least the first step.
Yes.
And I think everybody needs to understand, you know, we're for local government. I mean, you're a perfect example of that. Decisions made locally by the library, but there has to be transparency so that citizen taxpayers can be citizen auditors and keep everyone accountable. It's not a right-left issue.
I'm not a tax district, but I create revenue. I don't exactly. But I want to say this because of that. You said something, and I've said it, and I want it to be spoken many times in this room. Working together, working together. We are so blessed in this community that we have grown 729 manufacturing jobs in the last 2 years in a down economy. We're so blessed in this community to be in the location we're in. We're so blessed in this community. Our population has grown. It's never decreased that I'm aware of in the last 2 decades, even during our downturn. Darren?
Can you?
I'm not leaving this meeting, so you don't have to raise your hand at me.
Well, no, because you were speaking, and you can speak directly to this. For my information, talk about the growth, and I moved here at the end of 1990, and I remember when I moved here, it was in November. I remember like it was yesterday, driving around the bypass, just looking around. I had heard about Hobart and A.O. Smith closing down. It seemed like every day was rainy and gray, literally. And I was thinking, why in the world have you moved here? Why have you come here?
And things have turned around.
And it has, okay? Now, how has that happened? Like, even specifically over the last year, how have the 729 jobs been added? What's been the real reason for that?
There's lots of reasons. And that's what one of the main ones is working together. We tout that in my job. You know, you have an industrial prospect come in, you want the mayor and the judge both in the room, and they gotta like each other, and it's gotta come out that way. And if they don't, it comes off that way. They don't want to be in a community where people don't like each other, don't work together. They want to know that if they have a problem with trash, with the traffic light, with training, whatever, that they can call me and I can get something done about it, which I do. That's my job.
By the way, she's committing heresy by talking about the fact that there's a little bit of a lack of cooperation between those two people, because those two people she works for, okay? And also, she's not going to tell you, but the main reason why those 729 jobs came here, and actually more like another 700 stayed here, was because she was at the forefront of negotiating with the state to keep an incentive alive for a business out here.
A tax credit program.
That's right, and that's the only reason why that was. And here's the funny thing. There is no special taxing district for economic development. In fact, by law, they're not allowed to collect. So how she gets her funds for what she does is there are citizens that join the industrial authority, and we pay for the chamber. We pay for chamber membership, and that's how she gets some of the money. And then some of the general fund income, if I'm right, comes from the city.
The city and the county. I'll tell you right now, I get $65,000 from the county. That's what it's been since the inception of this office 20 years ago. No raises.
And because of the jobs that was brought here, and it's a total of about 5,600 since 1995, 1994. They generate $2 million. $3 million worth of payroll tax, and her whole budget is
close to $200,000. But 110 of it comes from city and county government. But one of the things he said, you know, Cooper stayed here. You know, and the Cabinet for Economic Development told me right up to my face, well, that we couldn't do what I did, that I didn't do, that we worked together and did with politicians, even politicians that weren't from our area, like Rocky Atkins and John Stacy. They told us we couldn't pass that legislation. Please don't print that. They'll never bring me another client. But we did. We worked with Richard Henderson, and we worked with our legislators, and every one of them pulled together, and we got it done. We got that legislation passed, and they created 400 jobs. They were going to create 120. They've gone from 200 to 650.
There's a choice between Dayton, Ohio, and Mount Sterling.
Bowling Green, Ohio.
Bowling Green.
And I was there the day of that celebration. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a good feeling. My question is, what was the catalyst? I understand that everybody worked together on that.
Non-union, our workforce, you know, I'm gonna make some more enemies, but
But-
I'm anti-union, so.
And reduce taxes,
And
I
reduce
heard?
taxes, right? The
No,
tax
tax credits.
tax
Well-
credits.
Tax
Okay,
credits.
so I
Tax
mean,
avoidance.
Tax
so
avoidance.
so there that's
You don't
that-
pay out as much.
that was what my thought was. A lot of that catalyst or push to help with that is
The tax credit program, which is using taxpayer money to help create jobs. So it wasn't, there,
Okay.
you gotta understand that it's not.
I'll
a
fill you
tax-
in. CREDA, KidFund. There are two different programs. One's Kentucky Rural Economic Development Act, and one was Kentucky Development Fund?
KEDFA,
KidFund, yeah.
Kentucky Economic Development.
Yeah. What they do is they give entrepreneurs or businesses an opportunity to avoid tax during their first 5 or 10 or 15 years of existence in exchange for investing capital. Some states,
And creating jobs.
yes, and creating jobs. Some states give out money and then either wins or loses. I mean, a good example is Solyndra. We gave out $500 billion. Poof, gone. Okay? The good news about CREDA and KidFund, and CREDA was created by Martha Lane Collins.
Paul Patton.
Well, Martha Lane Collins started it with Toyota, and then they adopted it for every other
Paul
group.
Patton wrote the
It was based on a county being below the employment level or having higher unemployment level than the state average.
For 5 consecutive years.
Right. And if you did, then you qualified for it. And what it did was, if an entity came here and invested capital and hired people, they would get tax credits against their profits for up to 15 years. And those tax credits at first was both the state income tax and payroll tax.
No, 4% of the state income.
Four of the state income tax, 2% of state and local tax, where the employee still paid their state tax and got credit for paying that state tax, but the state reimbursed you for those taxes that you paid up to the amount of capital investment and the interest on that capital investment for up to 15 years. It's a great deal. It's the only reason why Gateway is actually here today, okay? And now KidFund allows you to get 2% of payroll or state
It's still
income?
4%.
4% of income tax, but no payroll.
No local.
No
local
local.
participation, because I don't want to say that about payroll tax. Somebody said payroll tax is raised. I don't know when payroll taxes was instituted, but it's never been raised. It's always been 1%.
Yeah.
And we are lower than any community around here. Menifee County's payroll tax is higher than ours.
Right. So it's a way of doing that, and she is right. If somebody's not paying taxes, then other people are paying taxes, okay? So it is using tax money to actually get jobs here. And that's why Mount Sterling wound up with 50-some hundred jobs.
Around 5,000.
Yeah, around 5,000 jobs, because we were the first county east of Lexington that qualified for CREDA credit.
As Del White used to like to say, we were the best of the worst.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to summarize this as a fair portion of our county's exceptional condition of growth and stability has been a program where the lessening of
State.
tax outgo has let the community grow?
Exactly.
So can you just take it one step further as a generalization to say there is a danger in the whole community being repressed because of a higher level of taxes that can be borne because they've got deeper roots, but they don't grow as much because taxes expand on them?
Now
You seem
you
to be
have-
learning fast.
Now you have the U.S. Congress fight,
Okay.
a firm grip on it. It's
So-
what's always been said,
so
is taxes go down, growth goes up.
So as a principle for me, now I shared my, $95 to $135 library tax burden. Now, I'm in a position to pay that once a month, you know. That's not a problem for me, but I see a principle that raising taxes will affect some other people that I think I've seen in some of our meetings. I think they're right at the edge of their budget. They don't have any, you know, when it goes up $40 a year, that 40 has to be snatched from somewhere, and I've got a little buffer in there still. So I'm thankful for that. So there is a general repression of growth and success and the whole base of success growing for our county if taxes are runaway. And even though I can afford it, it's not a matter of me being stingy or not wanting people to be served by a library, but I'm concerned that the effect of taxes for those who may not have a voice to express it is that they're at the edge. And they're the most disadvantaged and disempowered to speak up for themselves and say, I can't afford everything. And we see those pockets in our county.
I see them all two things here. One is there's a demand for rental property, so there's those people probably don't own a home, to be quite honest, if they can't afford property taxes.
But
I don't agree with that, because you've got seniors and stuff that, you know, work their whole lives, and their house might be paid for. You know, because they, you know, but, you know, so they should have nothing as far as they don't have a house payment or whatever, and they're living on Social Security or just a minimal budget, but then all of a sudden, if their tax
And the
bill is
last time I
something
checked,
every year,
There is a sunset
that
clause on it.
increases. That, but even that, it's
Senior
like with
citizens
me.
get a break on property.
But it's not zero. They
$34,000
don't have to-
homestead exemption, isn't it? I think. And just so we all realize, whether you rent or whether you buy, you pay property tax.
Oh,
Because,
absolutely.
because a person that rents is not gonna say, hey, look, you just pay me some money and I'll handle the property. No, it passes through.
Yeah, when our property taxes go up, our rents go up.
Yeah. And what we're asking for is a feeling that there are two sides being debated in every one of these special taxing districts, because right now, the only thing we have is trust that both sides are being debated. And the problem is heretofore in Mount Sterling, we've done so much growth that we were just dishing it out because we were all increasing. And now we've had this sudden crash, and I don't know about you, but my income is down 35% from 2008. Okay? So I tend to look at stuff a lot more with keen eyes than I ever did before. Like I said in our first tax meeting, I mow the property of Gateway Manufacturing. I mow it. Okay? You know why?
That's because your daughters are gone.
No, they never mowed it. They never mowed. I mow it because I can't afford that. I have to make trade-offs. So what I want to see, and I'm sure most every one of us want to see, we want to see that same hard trade-off look in all those things. Because when we were growing, we didn't have a problem with it. And look, I know because when we moved here in 1995, we found one house in all of Montgomery County that a family of 6 people could live in. One house. So infrastructure, all that stuff needs to come, and it all takes money to do. And all we're asking for is a very astute, sharp pen about what really is needed. And in order to know what's needed, you need input from the public as to what's there. And you also need some input as to the choices you make so that we make a good choice.
There's 2 more points I want to make. One is, as far as my office goes, our budget is $200,000. We get 110 from city and county. So obviously we run in the red just a little bit, and we live on land sales. And we haven't sold land for 2 years because we haven't had a building. And we have an investor from outside our community that's come in and built us a spec building. We're so blessed, and hope I can get at least a rent it and sold soon, so we'll have. But my point is, my government entity is broke in 2 years. If I don't sell some land, or if the city county government doesn't step up, the industrial authority will go away. And like I just said, go to a community that doesn't have an industrial authority and see what you get. Nothing. So I sit on some boards that are broke, flat broke. In 2 years, they don't have any money, and my board is one of them. And I wanna say one thing about so money is not being used, tax money is not being used inappropriately everywhere, and I'm not saying it's being used inappropriately anywhere.
Actually,
But I
you
wanna
give a good
say something
example
for the
why it's
library
not.
too. My husband and I taught Dave Ramsey, I hope y'all have heard of Dave Ramsey, at church for several years. And at least, whether they did anything wrong or right, at least they saved their money and did it living within their means and not going out borrowing money.
And we've said that many
We give
times.
that credit. And
So I
just,
applaud them
and
for
just
that.
so you know, you're a perfect example. Your group is a perfect example of money being misused. Because you're broke in 2 years and you're the person that generates jobs. So the last person that should be broke is the person that actually creates the growth. So you're our poster child for what's
Okay,
wrong
I've said too
currently.
much.
For what's currently wrong. Think about it. We should be investing money that will actually pay off for everyone.
I'm not trying to save my own job.
I know that, but listen to what I'm saying. What we're saying is there's excess money in different spots, and there's people that are really struggling in different spots, and then there's people that try to be good stewards of the money and all this other stuff. And when I hear you tell me that you need our money in order to keep alive, and you're going to be broke in 2 years unless you sell property, I'm sitting here and saying we are 2 years away from being what we were when Hobart left this
Well,
place.
the rumor mill is that y'all are coming after me, so.
No. Well, first off, we have to all promise to quit using Facebook. Damn, that pisses me off.
Don't do
'Cause
that
there's
because that's
just, but there's,
one of the
well,
ways
let's put
I
it this
got
way.
your information.
We
to
can
be able to see
Facebook,
that
we can
I
Facebook
really need to
information,
fix
yes.
it.
We can
But make it
Facebook,
factual
we can
information.
Facebook information, but the chatter, we want to Facebook because there's a lot of people that are younger than me especially.
If they're younger now, they're on Twitter. All us middle-aged.
So what we don't want it to do is we don't want to be a combative conversation back and forth. Facebook is a great way to get information out to the public, and that's a great way of doing it, especially people that are younger. And I'd love to get the people that are on our rolls for voting that never vote. I'd love to get them involved, but what we have to stop doing is stop the rumor mills. There's people on the library side that say stuff very inflammatory, and I'm sure there are stuff that is either said or accused of being said on our side that makes it inflammatory, and it doesn't do anybody any good.
But either way, if the rumor's out there that you're coming after somebody, that's not the way to approach it. If you have something, maybe you should take them for lunch and say, let's sit down and talk like two adults and not go attack them in public meetings or, try to smooth it, for lack of a
Well,
better
the only
word.
reason why we have to do this with
Smooth
the
the way
public
if you wanna
library,
have a conversation.
the only reason why we have to do it with the public library is because that's the only way we could get to meet with the board members.
Well, you can meet with them individually, you just can't meet with them all at the same
Yeah,
time.
you can't meet with them collectively, that's open.
You
record.
can't do that with any
That's not
board.
our rule.
And the
We
other,
can
no,
do
we're not saying it is,
State law.
but that's why we had to do the,
You're not gonna be able to meet
And
with
they-
any board that way.
No, city can't, nobody. You can't meet with my board that way.
less
I'm
than
open
half the
members
board
too.
members. So if there's 5 board members, you can meet with 2.
Exactly.
there's
You can't
7,
have
you can meet
more
with
than
3.
a
Less
majority
than
at
the
one time.
majority.
But then you're
Otherwise,
not
it's
gonna
a
get,
quorum.
you're not gonna
Tell her
get the
to
news
meet
media
with you.
coverage, and
That's the
people
law.
like me is not gonna know that
But
it's
I didn't
going
really
on,
come
in
and
to
it's never
speak, but
gonna
I-
get off.
But there's a few things I'd like to make known, to go on record as, the reason we were so aggressive with the library is because we were told that there was already a document executed with St. Joseph's to purchase that building.
Part of that
Who
rumor.
told you that?
Part of that same rumor that said we were out to kill the library. We were gonna cut out all the bookmobile. We were going to.
Yeah, somebody, and you all started that. You all started that
We're gonna
propaganda.
close-
Camargo.
That's
we're
a
gonna
simple
close
fact,
Camargo.
if you take the money, we don't have it to do those things. I mean, that's how a budget works. That's
mean,
why
if
you
you
take
take
away
away
our
You're
$1
right.
million.
You're right. That's how a budget
Yeah.
works.
But we didn't
But you
say
have
that.
$1.4 million that's been in the bank.
No, we do not.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
Ask your director.
Access to 2 million.
Ask your director.
No, the access to
No.
the 2 million
You don't wanna ask
is-
her?
We don't have that. I do
She
the
does- she
payroll.
does the
I
payroll.
know.
That is
I
her
have
job.
every bank account we have.
So in your budget where it says you have an excess of,
It's not an excess, we get a check, a big check for property in November, another one in December, and usually one in January. So that money is held in the bank that operates for the rest of the year. And then our vehicle checks are like $3,000 a month. So when you say excess, depending on at what point you look at that,
You have nothing
that
in the
operates
savings
the whole,
account
that, I
anyway.
mean, that's the savings for the whole
You-
year to
you have
operate
those
on.
savings account
So
anyway.
otherwise, we have $300,000 trust fund, Shannon and I have talked about. And then we have a savings account that I can't rattle off right now what it is, but it's, what, 500,000, something like that? And $1,000 CD. And then the other money that's come in, that's our new
operation.
money that's come in, that's our operational money.
In your
So by
bu-
the time you add it all up, that is,
1.4 million.
yeah.
But part of that's operational money, it's
So
not
part of that, I
just
mean,
pure
it's not
surplus for
reserve,
the
It's there for the
yeah, it's not
current.
total reserve money, that actually is part of our operating money, that is part of our budget this year.
How you
Well,
gonna
the
buy the
reason-
new building?
$250,000 is what the price tag of the building was.
Okay, so where's that, is it gonna come out of that?
Yeah, and that's 500,000 is what we've set aside for building.
What
And
about
that's
But
in
what
our
about the
budget.
800,000 renovation? That's just to start.
Well, and that's, you know, I've told you that up front. We had to have money set aside before we could look for grants. I mean, we're not looking at all using all our money to do that with.
Well, we
But
just have a
nobody has
concern that
asked
money would be
about
better
that.
spent, you know, on increasing access. I mean, that was why we were so aggressive with libraries, because, you know, Adam Eland's office said, you know, well, that, you know, $1.4 million, you know, that, you know, and that's just not normal. I mean, it was, he didn't say it
But
directly.
see, that was in
but it was-
June, so a part of that was the rest of the operating money till, you know, that's when we reported, was in June. So that was part of the operating money for July, August, September, October, till we got our next check in November.
That's what I'm saying, is it's not normal for a special taxing district to have $1 million on reserve, regardless of whether it's operational money or money for a building fund. You know, when you look at some of the other special taxing districts, they have $60,000, $100,000, $200,000, you know, or they're broke. You know, it's just, you don't see that large sum of money. You know, we've had some of our legislators here, and they've spoken about that and said, well, that's just a big red flag. They shouldn't have anywhere even, you know, that money should be in people's pockets, driving the local economy, you know, not sitting in bank accounts. Now, we understand that KDLA suggests that you guys earmark funds, and other special taxing districts earmark funds annually for expansion and renovation. But, you know, when you start earmarking $100,000 a year, $300,000 a year or more, you know, that's excessive, that's blatant. And, you know, when I read the manual, you know, it says that fundraising, that you should not expect to receive local funding, that you should not expect your local source of funding to cover your operational expenses and building, that you should look for fundraising, they said, and charitable donations, friends of the library, which I understand we don't have any friends of the library anymore.
Okay, we did,
Okay.
but that was a fiasco.
Okay.
And
So,
that really
and the
is
reason,
nothing
the
short
reason
of
why I
a
stated
fiasco.
that excess, I realize that every month it looks different, but what we saw in one of the budgets was something close to about $2 million worth of,
And that was from the state, I
bring
know
in,
exactly, his exact
and
numbers was from the
and
state
800
report that I
some
did
odd
last
thousand
year.
worth of expected expenditures.
And the way
which
that
has
figures.
a balance of $1.2 million difference. That's why we.
But, and that was from last year's spring report that we have to do, that's the Department of
It's
Local
required by
Government
DOT.
gold that's reported. So it shows this year's anticipated money, what you plan on getting from the taxing district,
Which is a
and
guess.
what was
And
in
then
the
something
bank,
else is-
and adds those two together. So that's how it says, this is your money you think you've got coming in, this is the money you've got right now. So this is how much money you'll actually have to spend.
Well, there was a
So that's how it gets
discrepancy in that
added
amount by more, I'm pretty sure it was more than $100,000 off. It said, you all had said in the official budget that you're expected to receive I think it's $765,000, is that right? This year in taxes, but yet PVA says that you're to receive $880,000 in taxes.
Well, and that's, you know, and I sent you an
So it's
email
like-
on that. We have to budget, you know, that was on our agenda last night. We started the budget, our budget has to be finalized in April. It has to be to the fiscal court by May 1, by law.
Right.
We don't get the paper to set our tax rates until August. So we don't know what the assessments are gonna be.
Sure
We
shoot
don't
in
know
the
what
dark.
the yeah, I
It's
mean,
a
it's
guess.
a
But what's,
guess.
how,
I mean, you do the best
is
guess.
Is PVA,
The PBA has to turn them in July
okay.
to the state, and then we get them in August to set the tax rates.
Well,
So
then
we're
why
turning
would
in a budget
PBA
in May.
Why would PVA have an 800 and some odd number and you have a 700 and some odd number? That was one of the questions we had.
Well, that's
Just they were
because it
guessing.
was
The-
done
the
in
PVA's
May as a
actual and theirs
guess,
is their
using
guess.
last, like right now,
I
we're
got you.
using the numbers the
Okay.
PBA gave us
Okay.
from July of last
Okay.
year. We set our rates in August. We're guessing on those numbers and adding a little, cause there's growth. It's a guess. I mean, that's all we can do.
Something else, are we in agreement there's a loophole?
We're in agreement, it's not a loophole. I mean, it's no different in a loophole there than there is when you do your taxes.
Because
You wanna call your
a big
taxes
part,
a loophole.
a big part of this is everybody coming.
There is a
to the
flaw in the
grips
calculation.
That there's a flaw in the calculation.
Yes.
That there's a problem with the language, that it's allowing special taxing districts to add multiple classes of properties together and then divide by 2. For instance, the real property and the personal property, add them together, divide by 2, and that produces a weighted average.
However, that is how
The law reads.
the law reads, and the law
There's-
says it has to be done.
It's a latitude.
But we
Let's use the
understand,
right one.
but
It's
we
really
under-
latitude that you have within that law.
Well, I mean, it's not a latitude, that is the law.
No,
It
it's
says it
it's
has
the
to be
latitude.
done, or
It's
it's
the.
not?
That is the law of how it says, here's how you calculate it.
But you don't have to calculate it
Period.
that way. There's 9 different
No,
avenues of
there's one way to calculate it. You just have other options of rates you can take.
So 9 different calculation methods.
No, there's one calculation method to get the legally defined rate.
Okay.
Where do the
One
other 9
calculation.
come in?
What's
Who,
the other 9?
how do those get assessed? and
Those
valued?
other 9, you get those 2 legally defined calculated rates every year.
Compensating and compensating plus 4.
Compensating
Yes,
and 4%.
those are the 2 legally defined.
And then,
There's
so how do you get
legally
the other
defined-
7?
Okay.
Then the other rate, and that was the year that after Shannon had come and talked to us, we said, hey, there are issues. We know that there is a flaw in those calculated rates. Let's see what we can do to work on that. Because the flaw is if real property is higher than personal property, or personal property is higher than real property.
Or vice versa.
Well, and it's usually if the
Personal
personal
property's
property is
higher.
higher than the real property, it creates that problem.
If the rates are all set the
Yes,
same,
if they're
then
the
there's no
same,
problem.
there's no problem, exactly. But if one's higher than the other, and if you look at every taxing district in the county, it's an issue. And
It's
I
not
don't
just
know
the
at
library.
what, no, it's not.
And it's not just
And I
Montgomery
don't
County.
know at what point in history that happened, but, cause it just, at some point, it happened, and I
So
don't
it
know.
makes, so it makes your
Long
real
before me.
estate income look
If,
higher?
if they match,
there's no problem.
there's no problem, there's no
So
growth.
what we really need to do
The-
is we need to have one rate for property that is taxed. Instead of 4 class, it's okay to
Well,
have 4
and we
classes of
can't
property.
set one
but-
rate for all property, because for us, vehicles can't be changed. And that's in some other
Okay.
weird freaked out statute. They're 3%, we
So
can't
maybe
do
we
it,
make-
we've
maybe
never
we
been able to do
look
anything
at
with vehicles.
setting the real property and the
period.
personal property
Yes.
rates together. Set them
And that would
equal. That we
fix
need
the
to
flaw
find, we need to,
together.
right.
So let me ask you one other thing. If you do your best job to guess at what that number was, it appears to me that if you set your rate based on that lower number, you don't want to overshoot, you don't want to undershoot, you try to get as close as you can. If you set it based on a number and it turns out that you have income of $100,000 more, in effect, doesn't that allow you to increase far more than the compensating plus 4? Because the following year, you go on your actual receipts to calculate the next year. So if you're off by 100,000, 1/7
Well,
of your
the
income.
budget and the calculating for the taxes are 2 different things.
But the law states that it allows you to be 4% higher in revenue.
On the
than
for
the
property
next
tax.
year.
On the
4% over the compensating rate.
based on the
Not
value of the
4% over
Okay,
last
here's something
year.
else. Can we clarify this? Is the compensating rate the same amount of revenue that was produced in the prior year? Are we in agreement on that? The compensating rate would be if you took in $1 million last year, that compensating for this year
Not
would.
based on the definition of what's written.
It's
in
not the
statutes.
it's not about the dollar amount, it's about the percentage of the property value, correct? That's how they get that number. It's not, if you said they were gonna get
It's
$1
not that
million.
easy.
Well,
I mean, even
There's
though you wanna
calculations
make it
for
that
it.
easy, it's really not that easy if you look at it
Well,
and you read the whole statute.
your point-
And you read the guidelines.
your point was if it was $1 million that year, then the following year would be $1 million plus 4%.
If there's no new assessment, if the assessments remain same, if there's no new net property, then theoretically, they would take it, if it
But
would
it's
be the
never gonna
same,
be the
compensating would be the
same,
same.
right?
But
It's
here's what
never gonna be
changes
the
it.
same and it's never gonna work out, and it's
Because
because of that.
assessments fluctuate and net new property fluctuates.
And
So you
because of
have
the
to
way it
take
gets
both of those-
calculated,
But
it
it's-
changes.
But it's really important, I think, that the budgetary number is as close as it can be to the actual. And if the actual is really off by $100,000, as I understand it, the whole idea behind this was compensating plus 4 or compensating was to guarantee that the library would, or the taxing entity would always be able to count on the income revenue that they had from the previous year.
That's correct.
And they can increase it by up to 4. But if you look at last year's income, and it was understated in the budget when all the all the revenue, or when all the tax rates were made, if it was understated by $100,000, in the following year, you now have a much bigger income than what you intended to base on, and you based your rates on that lower amount.
The tax rates are never based on what is turned in as a budget. They're
No,
two
but
different things.
but the rate is calculated based on the revenue from the previous year.
Based on
And-
the actual revenue, not anything to do with that budget. The two things are not the same at all. The budget and the actual tax rates, the rates are based on what actually came in last year. They
So
have nothing to do with that budget.
Whenever a community grows, here's the nuts and bolts of it. Whenever a community's assessment or worth or wealth, whatever you want to call it, increases, are the amount that we proportionately pay as property owners should decline. And what's been happening is the wealth of Montgomery County has continued to increase. Every year we've become a little bit wealthier, and every year we've paid in a little bit more in taxes. So, that's the problem. The nuts and bolts of it is every year that the assessments increase or net new property comes on the books, the amount that we each pay proportionately as landowners, as property owners, should come down. We should get a break. And we have been getting a break if you look at how the state calculates their rate and how our Montgomery County Fiscal Court's calculating their rate.
And how the library calculates.
But then when you compare and contrast that to how the library and the fire and ambulance and the school district and the extension service, how they're all calculating their rates, their rate calculations are different. And when I asked the PBA, well, why are they different? Well, we can calculate it this way or we can calculate it this way because the language isn't clear in the law. There's a loophole. Technically, it's not illegal. So some special taxing districts are calculating it through the loophole because it produces this exorbitant revenue, which it is. We've seen the library, for instance, go in the past 12 years, from 2001 to 2013, go from $215,000 in property tax to $880,000 in property tax. My income hasn't increased fourfold.
Well, 2005 was the first year that they ever took that increase in percentage. It stayed like 2.2, 2.3% until that 2005 year.
But what I'm saying is,
That was
every year it
the
should have went
first
down. Every year since 2001, the rate the library took should have went down. Every year it should have went down. It should still be coming down.
And actually,
because
your
we're
rate,
growing.
It would have been
and actually your rate,
non-existent by now.
No,
Had
it
it
would
gone
have
down.
would have been 1.5
your rate
cents.
did go
Should be
down
1.5 cents.
when you were first, since your inception.
The first 20
The
years.
rate was
It was-
33%.
Yes, it was.
And through 2001, it went down to 2.1.
Right at 2
And it
cents.
was, yes,
yeah.
I mean, that's what I say, it was like 2.3,
And then it shot up to 6 cents.
And it was
Right.
at that point in 2005 was when the board, and our 5-year plan and everything shows that, was when they decided, at that point, was when they decided to start taking the 4% overcompensating rate.
And being more aggressive in their.
Because it was in their 5-year plan and everything, and until then, they had never taken the 4% overcompensating.
But
It was at that point that they decided to take it.
It's not clear to us as taxpayers that if indeed that the board and or the public and or the public meeting or whatever decides that, number one, we should have an expanded library, and it should be expanded at one location, not at multiple locations. All those things, once it's done, it's not clear to us that all of a sudden your rate is going to drop back down because we're told, if I remember correctly, that you don't intend for your expenses to be any higher in this new building, which I find hard to believe, but I can only trust what you say. But nobody has said, look, Doug, cool your jets. Let us get this new 17,500 square feet minimum taken care of through this 19,000 whatever square foot building that we're going to put in Mount Sterling, because everybody in the county decides that we only want one central library and we want it right here in Mount Sterling. And once we do that, Doug, then your rates are going to go back down because we don't have a 5-year plan where we have to expand again, and therefore all this additional funding that we have generated and saved since 2005 will no longer be needed, and we will be collecting somewhere around $200,000 or $300,000. Nobody said that. So to us, if we see this number going up and up and up and up, and now we're going to build a building, or we're going to take a building that's twice as big, ooh, let's curve that baby up a little bit more. There's nobody telling us that this rate will never be as high as it is, because once we're in this building, based on our projections and our budgeting, we won't have this type of an expense. Therefore, we won't need this kind of tax. Therefore, your rates will go down. There'd be a lot less concern if we knew it was doing this and this. And we know why it's doing this, because the state government had all sorts of seminars for you guys saying, look, don't look to Papa State, we ain't doing that no more. If you're gonna build, you better raise your own funding. So you did. But the problem is all we see is in the last 6 years, you know, going from 200 and whatever to 800 and some is a large number. And then when you double in size, what makes me believe that 800 won't become 1.6? That's one of our issues. And we don't see that. And when I look at the budget that you provided for us, I see where we spent 3 times as much maintenance last year, but yet our maintenance for this year is the same as it was last year in the budget, which doesn't seem reasonable to me, unless there was a one-time expense that was equal to 3 times the budget amount.
We've got new cars.
Okay, so the rest of it should be okay. So it's just questions like that.
And that's, you know, there's random things like that does happen, you know,
Yeah.
we're falling
Yeah.
in on ourselves.
So what we're concerned about is we don't see the other side of that view, and we haven't asked it, but you haven't volunteered it yet to say, look, this is a peak and it'll come back down. Wouldn't be as near much concern, but we do have a concern because we are truly trying to represent all the people of Montgomery County, whether they agree or not. We're trying to represent them all, and I get concerned that, well, yeah, Doug, it's easy for you to say, yeah, we'll go do that library and we'll build it right there in Mount Sterling and everybody will be happy and it'll be great. And we'll have that walking, reading park right there in the middle of the library in Mount Sterling and you guys can drive 25, 30 miles.
Well, and I think they're committed to keep the branch in Camargo, which is, you know, we opened it in 2008, so, you know, that is a new expansion to the other side of the county. They want to keep it there because it's relatively inexpensive to operate other than you have to keep staff in there.
But is it a fair amount of space for the people in that area?
For the number of the people that come in, and you know,
Well,
we
yeah,
talked
but
about extra hours.
Coming in is sort of like one of the pitches we're getting. If we build it, they will come. So if you have a 1,500 square foot facility in Camargo, you'll get 1,500 square foot worth of people. If you had 3,000, would you get?
We have 1,500 square foot worth of people in our little building now,
That's
all over each other.
That's what I mean.
But they're not in the Camargo building.
Okay.
You know, and that's, you know, you'd ask about open on Saturdays. We were open on Saturdays when we first opened, but it just wasn't, you know, it's one of those business operation things. We had 2 staff members because the other office wasn't open. We had to pay for 2 people, and we might have had 10 people a day. It wasn't economically feasible to do it. So that's, you know, one of those things I just don't think would be economically feasible for us to pay for a building or an expansion out there and then not have enough people to come in.
Well, if what was stated in the meeting where they said that Montgomery County High School requires kids to do their homework on a computer, and a lot of people don't have access to a computer, then my question is, so Jeffersonville people don't get a chance to use a computer unless they want to drive 25 miles round trip.
And they do,
So-
you know, some of them come in out there at Camargo, but they still come to town, and, you know, their parents drop them off and say, well, Mom went to Walmart and dropped me off. So they're coming to town anyway. I
But
think
it'd be
what we're
nice
seeing.
to ask, it'd be nice, again, if we're really trying to represent all of Montgomery County, we're not Mount Sterling, we're Montgomery County.
Yeah.
And so, when asked what we do, and when told, if we cut $1 out of your budget, then they're gonna fire sale the bookmobile, they're gonna close down
And we have to give it away.
Camargo, then we start looking, okay, well then what would we do? So we open it up, and we're not near as intelligent or knowledgeable as you are about the budget and what's required. So we ask goofy questions.
But we would be if there was transparency.
But and
Yeah,
we
I mean,
really
we
do
came to the
try
meeting,
to be.
you know, we came to the meeting, you know, last night expecting for about 40 questions to be answered, and 3 of them were answered. You know, and we came expecting there to be dialogue and open communication, and instead we were given an entire page full of rules stating that we can only speak once, we can only speak 3 minutes worth, we can't donate any time to each other. Well, I mean, it sounded like I was in China. You know, it was like you can't speak unless spoken to. You only can speak 3 minutes. It's like this is.
So we were
United
trying
States
to
of
pass,
America.
we were actually
we're
trying to
have
pass
dialogue.
questions around to the other people that didn't have a specific question because we weren't allowed to ask.
Well, and we didn't mean that you all couldn't talk to each other. We just didn't want a fight amongst, you know, and you know.
And you did notice that I think this side of the meeting was addressing the board while the
Well,
other
and
side
then we did, you know,
was
we
addressing us.
finally did ask one person to leave. So, you know, and we didn't want that to get into a showdown as far as that. And in their defense, you know, we do have 2 new board members that have only been to 2 board meetings now. Come on brand new, and at their first board meeting, they were handed a piece of paper that says, we're gonna sue you.
Right. And that was a
So,
mistake on our part.
They're, you know.
And I think
almost
everybody
there.
here everybody will admit that, again, we were not legally counseled.
They've, you know, come on as brand new people, and then all of a sudden, been threatened with
And
litigation.
most people don't get paid, and they have real lives too.
Yep.
And they're volunteering
know
their
that.
time for their community.
And I think more than once we actually thanked them for the participation, because we know it's a royal pain. It really is. And it's a royal pain when there's disagreement and there's confrontation. So we were trying to be
But I get the feeling though that it's the board against the people, when the board should be the people. You know, if the people, I mean, it should have been as simple as just everybody in the room who wants a new library, say aye. Everybody opposed, say nay. You know, and if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, I mean, that in its simplest form is the way it should be. But we understand there's rules and protocol and things like that. But, you know, it just seems like it's like you're not even wanting to have the discussion. It's just, you know, you've already bought this lavish $1 million facility and not told anyone, or even though maybe we haven't asked about it, all right?
Yeah, and we haven't bought anything yet, but you know, there's more people in the room, more people in the discussion than who's in the room, just like.
Melissa, I want to commend you for coming to.
Yeah, by the way,
so
you've done more explaining
Yep.
and communicating
You know,
And all the others combined.
I want to say this is what I wish would happen.
And thank you very much
and,
for
and
not.
that's, you know, and we would like to, but you know, truthfully, Shannon, we have to be really careful because things that happen do get twisted. Nobody at the library makes $1,000 a week, although you said that on the radio. I make $1,000 every 2 weeks, so you know.
Well, there's a it said $23.54 an hour, so that was like.
That, but it's, you know, every 2 weeks, and we get paid for 35 hours. So when you do the math, you know, nobody gets paid for 40 hours.
So $800.
So yeah.
We already know that
No, it's
he
not
is our.
$800 because I write a check.
But
Okay.
so it's and that's, you know, again,
So that's
the
not
board
right.
is very.
Is it salary or is it hour?
It's
hour?
salary.
I'm the
Salary.
only one that's paid salary. Everybody else is technically hourly, but in QuickBooks you have to figure it out by the hour to make it work.
Well, I just taken the I think it was $23.54 an hour, and I multiplied that by 40, and that came up with 900.
Yeah, nobody's paid for 40 hours. It's 35 hours.
I just want to, again, I want to thank
Even if you put 80 hours.
Melissa, I do want to thank you. I want to make a point here. Is we're learning something right now, and I'm glad. At first, I was actually unhappy that we picked on the library at first. The reasons were stated, but in the end, what I'm seeing is that it's a good thing we did because you are willing to come down here on your own time, which is much appreciated, and explain to us. And I think that we can take this knowledge that we're learning right here and learn how to go and talk with the others, especially.
If they'll talk with us, you know, and you've been very open. Thank you very much for sharing information and not making me do a open records request. You know, with the school, I sent an open records request, and they didn't come forward with the information. I had to file an appeal with the attorney. I had to file a complaint with the attorney general.
They threatened to arrest them.
They called a police.
Well,
They called a police
I really
officer
am
on
trying
them.
to answer your all's questions, and as far as I've got your all's list of questions, I really am trying to work through answering all of them. But you know, I really do have to work the desk and do story
Yes,
hours
we
sometimes and other
understand
things
that.
too. So you know, I really do have a real job besides answering questions and.
We want to
the
get
emails.
past.
But
we
thank
wanna
you for
get
being
back
very
there.
open, and
Yes.
you have been very transparent, and we commend you for that. You know, the other taxing districts, I mean, it's like they built this wall around them. And you know, when you ask for a piece of information, they say, well, you have to fill out this application for it. You know, and it is an application because they have the right to decline that. Well, they're my books. As a taxpayer, Montgomery County, you know, I look at it as my library, our library. We own it as a collective. And you know, so when I say I want to see my books, I really literally mean my books, and I don't mean that in an arrogant or an egotistical way. I just mean it as in a literal sense. They're my books. I have the right to inspect whenever, you know, within reason. But you know, when you ask to look at books and they call the police and say, well, we don't have to, you know, you don't have the right to look at these books. You know, it's like, well, you know, I mean, what would you think? So, you know, and that was with the school. You know, they called the resource officer, the police officer up there to attempt to explain a law to me that they were unclear about, unsure about. And then the attorney general, I had to put on speakerphone to explain it to them, and they still would not release the records. You know, even after the attorney general of Kentucky had explained to them the law. So, you know, that's some of the resistance that this group has had to go through with some of the other taxing districts. Right now, you know, the fire department, we've requested some records there, and there's 483 pages at 10 cents a page that we have to physically go down there in person and fill out an application
for this information and write a check for $48.30 that I don't think, even though they have the legal right to charge us that they should, you know. Doug would donate the paper and the toner and, you know.
But we're gonna
but
pass a collection hat around for everybody, because we've got a couple things we wanna do, and like I told Shannon.
This stuff should be on a website somewhere.
Shannon is
Well,
our.
and that's, you know, and I don't know what kind of situation they have down there, but, you know, as far as us, our website, we don't have anybody who puts stuff up on a website, and our webpage is our catalog, and it's kind of not
But
easy to get
just
anything
the
on.
budget, just the last
So, you know,
5
I
years
did
worth
get
of
the budget.
budgets in PDF as a download link would be awesome. You know, if every taxing
I did
district
get
would
part
start
of the budget
there.
I could, you know, and like I said, that was
And so
not
y'all
much enough.
understand, Shannon is our spark plug, and he's also our emotional guy. And he's also
Right,
been
well,
probably, and he's been probably beaten more than anyone. So occasionally we pull him back in. But the whole thing is, and again, really, I can't tell you enough, I was frightened yesterday when I came down to that meeting, because I thought we lost the one board that appeared to be reasonable. I really did. And then when we found out why, you know, we didn't stand up and get mad and stomp out. We went and talked to the lawyer and said, who did it? What did we do? And he said at the very end, he said, oh, that was a mistake. He said, we're not represented by legal counsel, so that was a mistake. Didn't mean it. Whatever we have to do to back it out, let's back it out, because there's no sense in spending money, you know. You're already spending $500 a year now for the local government to collect your data and put it in data.
Yeah, because
which,
it has
for
to be
which
one.
we don't
Now-
know what.
now it
For
costs
what-
taxpayers more
Yeah,
money.
for what we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, for what we don't know, but anyway, so.
Well, and that's, you know, was my other argument on the whole thing there. Sadly, and that's somebody else to be mad at,
Yes.
we were all sending that exact information
Already.
to the state
But they're being
already,
paid now for it.
and nobody at the state was doing anything with it.
Right, and they're
Every-
hiring,
you know, well,
and
except
your
for the
money is
taxing
hiring,
districts
your
that
money
did
is
the-
hiring another state worker to collect that money and put it in a
Then
database.
hopefully they will do something
Not
with
to
this stuff.
analyze it, not to analyze it, just to put it into a database.
But, you know, exactly. We were already doing it, it just,
Now you have
it
to pay
didn't
to
go
do it.
anywhere.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Ken.
hopefully they do something with it this time.
My gut radar here, I think there have been some aha moments or some insights established tonight that hadn't been there before. And if anyone would like to, I think it's often reinforcing to the opposite side of the argument, you know, for someone to say, oh, now I understand. If there's anything like that, that somebody had an insight or they see an overlap they didn't see, or something where something was corrected on your insight, that might give relief to the emotional pressure that you know, having an opposing point of view can build up. Would anyone like to share that? You know what I'm asking?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I will say, you know, for the Bluegrass Institute, we're committed to building a culture of transparency, and I think that's where you get a feeling of taxation with representation. You feel engaged. You know, okay, you know, my tax bill is outrageous right now, but I know it's going to a new facility because I've been able to come to the library, see a budget. Okay, in 5 years this is going to go back down a little bit. Not a problem. And it's not a partisan. Transparency is not a partisan. It's not issue. It's not divisive. And really just sort of building up that culture of transparency, of saying, you know, this is our government. We want to see how it works. We want to be engaged. And you know, I think for a long time, you know, myself included, you're busy with running your own life. You don't have time to look into government and how it's being operated. So it's up to us to say, look, we need a culture of transparency where not only is the information there, it exists, but it's understandable, it's easy for citizens to see, you know, making you pay 10 cents a page, or, you know, go pick up a stack of printed.
It could be emailed, you know, or faxed. I mean, we've
When it can
routinely
be
asked for
emailed.
the information to be emailed, and, you know, in some cases, I'm pretty certain they have it in digital format, but yet they make us take the longest road possible to the information.
Yeah, and I think that's just expecting more, you know, from our government and building that culture of transparency.
That wasn't the case with ours.
A lot of times it's not in ours either. We don't have a scanner. And so so.
But I mean, like a fax, I mean, you know, information can still be faxed.
It's a 23, you know, it's 2013.
But they're charging you because they're under their understanding this group is just a bunch of rich landlords. And that's another reason why I'm here, because I'm definitely here to represent the very, very far from rich.
Well, and then you
person.
have to ask the
And-
question, if you're gonna build this huge expensive facility and expansion, can't you first buy a scanner? You know, I mean, it's kind
Or a
of,
fax machine, buy a fax machine.
yeah, as taxpayers, you know, when there's tons of money flying around, it doesn't matter, but when times are tough and the economy is tight, it's kind of like, okay, maybe expansion right now, maybe you need to take care of that scanner in 2013 and put off that $8 million or whatever it is. I don't know what the figure
Well,
is.
and you know, truthfully, we don't have a place to set a scanner. If you came in our back room, you would see there's no place to set a scanner.
I'm confused by what we would be scanning.
Just like records and
He
stuff
just
like,
stepped in.
like information, like some of the tax records, the tax calculation worksheets, we request them to be sent via email, and we're told they don't have them in email, and then when we request for them to be faxed, we're told that they're too voluminous. Well, I mean, if there's 100 pages, then send 5 fax transmissions of 20 pages, you know, and it saves someone from having to take off from their job or from their work to actually come down and pick up the paperwork. And I just try to make it easier on taxpayers to look at their books.
And I think because the public has been so silent for so long, especially in Montgomery County.
Well,
Because everybody's busy working. We're so silent for so long. When we ask one of those questions, I think the first take is people are offended or taken back, saying, well, why do you need to see that?
Yeah.
And so
And I've been asked that.
then the emotional climb starts.
Yeah.
And we don't want that. Like for instance, hopefully you took away from here that if we knew your 5-year plan, how much you expect to spend if you're in this new building or not in this new building, that would make us feel better. You know, it's like when the government took away the top tax bracket or something, they also took away a lot of deductions. And then they reinstated the tax bracket, but they didn't give back those deductions. So it's kind of like, you know, we just want to see where we're headed. And so that's one thing. Your budget thing, you answered that one very succinctly, and that made me feel better because I was worried that the budget was just being gone through and said, well, yeah, we did spend $5,000 or $8,000. Now we're expecting to spend $1,200 because we didn't have to buy a furnace. I mean, that was very enlightening. It made me feel much more secure in the effort you guys put forth in the budget. And that's not to be doubting, it's just, you know, when I see something like that, ooh, wow, that scares me because I have to do budgets all the time.
But when our board gets their packet every month, every check that we've written has an explanation on the check for what it was for, who it was to, and it has a code that goes with the budget. Any check we've written, you can come back to my desk and say, hey, what was this check for? And I can pull it up and tell you, we piled a lot of toilet paper for that. That's just how it is.
Right, and that's good, and the thing was, is if we're given a budget, we were just looking it over, trying to figure, because the first question that was part of the group that thought we were trying to rob every child, you know, go back to Abe Lincoln with the candle and you had to read by candlelight. Well, the first thing we thought was, well, you know, I think you said it, we want you to be innovative about your expenditures, and not that you haven't been, but we want to make sure we're really scrubbing through it because, look, folks, to see something go from 95 to 135, or to see something go from 200 to 800, that's a pretty hard pill to swallow, you know. And we really don't care about the rates and everything else. It's just 200 to 800. That seems like an awful thing. So that's why we're asking, and that's why we're requesting stuff. So I like I said, I think that your hour you spent talking to us has been so informative. That's not funny. Now, we still got to go back and I still got to try to figure out how to read in House Bill 44 and figure out what it means.
Can I ask for confirmation on something? I think when you were describing budget stuff, you said there was a $500 something and a $300,000 something.
We have two trusts, 2 CDs. One's a trust. and it's 300 and some odd, whatever.
Like
We have a,
332, I
yeah,
think.
we have $100,000 CD.
Okay.
Those are both, you could count as reserve savings or
And they're
whatever.
just
However,
rolled
the
over.
trust was originally set up when that building was built, that we couldn't use anything but the interest off of it. We,
Oh,
can't get
okay.
into it, we can't
Okay.
touch it,
Okay.
but it's there and it's on the books. Then we have a checking account, which right now does have a good chunk of money in it because all our checks from
But a lot of
that
that
has come in, and
is
then there's a savings
current
account.
year,
Yes,
uh,
that's all our new money that's come in,
current
comes into
year
the checks.
expenditures.
Because we don't get any more big money again till November.
So, the big secret
Everybody's-
nest egg is, well, there's a
300.
trust, which you can't really even use for the
Yes,
new building.
no, we can't
Okay.
touch that, can't spend it, can't.
And so, what is the amount that you have that you, according to your 5-year plan, that you're hoping to put on a new facility?
We have appointed $500,000,
Okay,
that's in a
500.
savings account right
Okay.
now. I mean, there's a little more than that in there, but
Okay.
that is what's actually on our budget, $500,000.
Was that building built for the library
Yes, the building we're in now, yes.
in 1980 or whatever?
Yeah, it was 81, 82, something.
Well, you guys are hard on the building. You said your building is
It's a whole
is a
people.
mess. I'm sitting here saying, boy, if I had a manufacturing building that was 1980.
Well, we didn't have any say in how they did it.
Oh, okay.
I can
Yeah,
tell
we
you
were
that.
none there, but yes, it's,
Our middle school was built and look at the problems it has.
it was built since
I
then,
mean,
yes.
Yeah.
As far as the building, I'd like to exchange a scanner for the building whenever you're done with it. Even trade, because my business would like to move and I'll take it. No, just kidding. Do you have a?
That's a
Do
deal.
you have?
Well, it is there in your
Please
neighborhood,
take it.
yeah.
Is that? Do you all? Is the plan? If the move is made to sell the property,
Yes.
and how would that?
It would
do
have
you
to be
a-
public.
Do you have any kind of estimate on what that might produce in a sale? Any kind of estimate at all? Or?
That they don't have any estimate right now, and, you know, it will just have to be opened by law, it'll just have to be offered publicly, so.
And are those funds from a sale, would they be available to put toward the use of the new building or property or pay that?
Yes,
All
they could
of
be.
that
The
could be.
reason that the original trust couldn't be is the house where the original building was donated to the Women's Club. So when that house got sold, and then additional funds that were also donated from that family were put in a fund that was from that trust.
Trust, and they put those.
How long is it untouchable forever?
In theory, it's forever.
And you've been really open, and so now I'm gonna press you for opening.
There's a point that I
In
might
fear
stop.
of bringing up a rumor, we've been told from time to time from different people that the church in front of you is for sale, but they're not gonna put it up for sale. And this is part of the rumor stuff, and I don't know what's true, so I'm gonna ask you, because you're open. Said that they're not gonna put it up for sale or not gonna announce it to anybody until you guys settle and get into your new building up there, so it doesn't cause a rift.
Last month I drove by, there was a sign on the front of the church.
I
swear to you,
mentioned that,
I saw
yeah.
it with my own eyes. I
So-
ain't lying to you.
The only thing that
Why the sign disappeared, I have not discovered it yet.
The only thing that I can say is they did let us look at the property, the library board, looked at the property. Of course, you know, now whatever it says on the World Wide Web. But, they did let us, the board, look at the property. And, you know, one of the things that the board looked at it was the option to use it for a computer center.
Yeah, that'd be
It'd be fabulous for that.
You could put the
That way the
unobstructed-
computers are up there and, you know.
The
if
unblocked people
there's-
over here.
Yeah, that's exactly,
On the-
there's
on the-
all
on the
kinds of
bottom
things
level,
that could happen up there. So,
Remember, this was a
Block
church.
people.
but, you know, you could even do, you know, computers in one part and children program in the
Right, yeah,
bottom.
'cause
I
you
mean,
have-
there
you have
could be-
rooms, yeah.
Yeah, different things going on. So we did look at that. And, you know, there weren't any price tags or anything at that point discussed, but we did look at that option. But truthfully, we still had that parking issue. You know, that would give us the building, and the board could purchase all the parking, you know, because we only own half the parking right now. We own the half next to Mrs. Lane, and the half on the other side, next
wind up with 37 parking spots.
So we wind up with actually owning all the parking spots for a change instead of just borrowing part of them.
What's wrong with leasing it? We have to
Well,
pay
I
the
mean, right
church.
now we don't have to pay anything for them,
What's the
so.
big deal about it?
Well, 37 is more than what the KDLA handbook actually suggests, I believe, for the square footage.
For the
down
square
there.
footage,
Yeah.
that's right. We're fine with the square footage that's there. It's just the issue that, all the people that are in the building, there's not enough room. And we have even, at one point, and it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago, we had an appraiser look at Dale Shrout's, apartment property there. But, which, we again took that into consideration when we looked at the church, because that would kind of open up that property. And there's just still not enough space, and for the cost, that option for the church was given to us about the same time that the hospital property came up too, and there's just so much more space up there. I mean, it's 4 acres up there.
But there's,
As opposed to we would be stuck with, an acre and a half.
but there's $800,000 at least in renovations up there too, though.
There's $3 million. An architect looked at our building to get our building, the library building, to the square footage that the hospital building up there. Architect looked at both buildings. About $1 million for
But
the
it wouldn't
hospital
if you
we
bought
got to the same.
If you bought the church,
But there would be some type of renovation up there, right?
but
the
not
church.
800,000.
No.
Because it's a public
It would be more than you
facility.
think, because
It
you have
is.
to do the ADA.
Oh yeah, I know all about
We'd have
that.
to meet,
Yeah.
we'd have to meet ADA in our building, which would be
Yes.
really.
No,
and both
because if you're not
ADA
touching your building, you don't have to.
Yeah, if we don't touch but there's things, it needs a roof right now.
Yes.
But that's not code compliant requirement.
It's not, but there are
Not
things,
for a
then
roof.
when you gotta look at other things, depending on how much you get into, would be. But ADA and then the new, environmental, and that's what was gonna get us. Cause we had 2 different architects come in and look at the possibility of just smaller expansions at the library. And.
Oh yeah,
they were-
expansions would be expensive. Buying a church is not expensive. And the
I said,
renovations would
they've
be.
looked at a variety of options.
Okay.
But to answer your original question, that's the only sale for the church that I'm aware of. I didn't know, they haven't mentioned anything else, hadn't said anything else.
Okay.
That's, to us, is the only thing that I'm aware of. And at that point, they did say, well, we have a couple of members that have property elsewhere, we could move if we had to. So,
Is this still a possibility? I mean, with the
For them?
library? No, for us, for the library, would we still consider that?
Because it
Oh.
sounded
Still
like
an option?
It sounded like in your explanation, which was good, there was a little bit of oranges and apples. Talking
well,
about expanding
there are
existing-
other, that would cost a lot more in staffing, because you're staffing 2 buildings.
And to live.
And a lot more, once our technology guy looked at it, then you're looking at a whole lot technology-wise. You're gonna have wiring in 2 buildings, you're gonna have internet in 2 buildings, you're gonna have a phone bill in 2 buildings.
No, we can.
So-
It's minimal, yeah.
It's a
minimal.
2 days
We can go to
work-
tablets
2
instead
days
of
work for
computers.
tax guys.
Well, I mean, those things, but I'm talking about the separate bills going into those 2 places.
Don't
You don't
Pay
have
that
to have
all
the
the
2
time.
separate internets.
You can microwave between the 2.
$500, yeah.
That's.
I mean, that's minuscule. I mean, yeah, you would have, I guess, a separate water bill and a separate electric bill, but I mean, you're gonna have that wherever you go. I mean, you're gonna have.
So, being there on the same property and having 2 buildings, when you've got to logistically look in at some of those kinds of things.
You're gonna be in 2 floors in your other building, right?
No.
The hospital? It's
Yeah,
1.
I thought you said
One.
there was.
No, I said if we had to do 2 floors in our current
If they
building.
stayed in your current building, yeah.
If they stayed in our current building, it'd have to be 2
Expansion.
floors. But the hospital would just be single.
There's no possibility with the hospital property of generating income from it.
That's something that the board has looked at, cause there's enough extra space there that they could look at some alternatives. A lot of hospitals have, groups that come in and do a coffee shop, something like that, bookstores, that would have to be an outside group. The library can't, there are laws that the library can only make money off of library-related things. We can't even sell books over $10,000 by law. So, because we are, number one, we can't make money off tax, other than tax money. And then number 2, there are only so many things that we can do that, we can't do anything that's not library related. Unless we wanna do the whole sales tax things and all kinds of, crazy things you get into. But yeah, we could, lease a space for something like that and then generate some income that way.
Is there a hard, fast quote to do whatever is necessary to make this building livable for the library?
The architect that looked at it was, you know, right at $1 million to do, I mean, finished, done, furnish it with new furnishings and everything.
That's renovations,
Yes.
in addition to the 250,000.
No, that included
Does that
purchase
include
of the property
purchase
and
price?
everything.
So 750.
But that, I mean, you know, so that gives us some playroom, you know, depending on what we wanna take that we already own and, you know,
It's just
that was,
patch of dirt up there right now, so.
well, yeah,
And
and that
that's
was
the architect's
before.
estimate, it's not a,
That was just his estimate at the time, and that was truthfully before everything was gone.
okay. So are you planning on getting a quote before you purchase the building?
Well,
For fear that $1 million could become,
And you know, I won't lie to you, that's why nobody has signed anything, and that's why no money has changed hands. We're waiting till everything gets to,
Is there a written
Clear.
agreement? Cause
No,
the first
there's-
meeting it was stated there was a written agreement.
no,
So
oh,
there's
well,
nothing.
okay. And I told you all last night, we had a lawyer draw up an agreement, they've had a lawyer draw up an agreement. Nothing has been signed by either party. The two agreements do not say exactly the same things. So.
So they're not in
But they
agreement.
say
so an offer
relatively.
has been made, but nothing has been agreed
Yes, an offer was
to.
made back last March.